everyone. I'm Bruce Belfiore, CEO of BenchmarkPortal, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this webinar on a new contact center management tool that puts together the power of automated benchmarking with expert consulting input to provide you with business intelligence you can really use month in and month out in your call center. I'm joined today by Christopher Rouse of Symmetrics, who will be talking shortly about contact center benchmarking and analytics, as well as by Crystal Kay, who is monitoring questions that come in by chat. And in fact, I invite all of you to use the chat screen in front of you to send us any questions that you might have. And Chris and I will be happy to answer them later on in the webinar. Okay, well, one of the big pain points call center managers face is management information, or the lack of it, the unreliability of it, trying sometimes to pry it out of its hiding places in reports or from the heads of individual employees, and also getting it into usable, actionable, dashboard-like form on a regular basis so that you can actually use it to help you manage in a structured way to bring your call center toward best practices. And in addition, managers face other pain points. There's budget cutbacks these days, loss of historical memory to retirements, lack of time and budget for management training, and just trying to stay current with changes in technology and emerging best practices. And managers really want an unbiased expert they could call upon who's able to update them on the latest and who understands them well enough to make the connections between their needs and the new things that are out there. Well, you know, those are the things that can really make the information a blessing when it's well structured and there to use and easy to interpret as well. What we found is that proper benchmarking, along with expert advice, consistently helps centers to become the best that they can be, optimizing their efficiency and their quality, which is why we call it the mother of all best practices for call center managers. It really provides essential management information, all those KPIs that we all follow as call center managers. It also shows you how you stack up to others in the industry. And by exposing your negative performance gaps, it focuses your attention on things that really matter to make you more competitive. And it gives you a tool that shows measurable improvement over time. This is one of the beautiful things about benchmarking, is that you can actually see yourself grow, just like this tyke in the picture here. And that can be very, very important in your presentations to management. And it's also a very satisfying part of being a call center manager, to see how you get better over time. And we see over and over again how important this is really to management morale, as well as to morale of the other people in the call center. Well, up till now, benchmarking has actually worked as follows. You have to gather a lot of information from numerous reports, from your ACD report, your HR reports, your workforce management reports, etc. Then go to our website and input the information, or in some cases fax it in or mail it in. And then we take in the information. In the case of BenchmarkPortal, we do cross-checks on the data for quality purposes, and sometimes have to go back to you in order to get clarification on things, and then provide a report. And here's a page from one of our reports. It shows key performance indicators, the ones that managers follow, with a column for the specific call center's value, then a column with the industry average, and then a column which shows what sort of gap there is, positive or negative. And obviously we can learn a lot from all gaps, but the ones that need your attention are the negative gaps of important metrics, like, for example, calls closed on first call in percent, or what we commonly call first call resolution. In this case, the client, which was receiving calls typical of its specific industry sector, had an 8.8% negative gap with the industry average. As we'll see later, we turn that negative information into really a gold mine of insights and positive actions that can really push the center well above the industry average through focused initiatives. And we'll talk more about this later. So First, I want to show you our balanced scorecard, okay, which takes these metrics on both the effectiveness side and the efficiency side, and we have that little fulcrum down below and the wiggle up top, indicating that we really do want to balance between effectiveness, which is to say quality, and efficiency metrics, which are the ones that are cost related that have an economic impact. And try to do our best to optimize both, but keeping both in mind. And we run metrics from each side through expert formulas. So the effectiveness metrics get run through an expert formula, the same thing on the other side of the equation. And what we do is we come up with an index for each side, a cost index and a quality index, which is a number that can then be plotted on the four-quadrant matrix that you see here. And you see down below the efficiency index, which is for quantity along the bottom side, and along the left, there's the effectiveness index, which is there as well. And so this way you can find out where you stand compared to your industry sector. And it's very important to note that the background for this statistical graphic is your entire industry center. So if you were exactly with the average of your industry sector on both quantity and quality, you would be in the exact center of this four-quadrant matrix. Those who are in the lower left-hand quadrant, we talk about as being a corporate liability. And in fact, a lot of centers that begin benchmarking find themselves in that quadrant. Not unusual at all, and nothing to be ashamed of, as long as you move yourself up from there by taking those actions which will in fact improve those metrics. This gets to be a very good program. It's not necessarily all in one direction. Sometimes you have a little bit of a backslide there, as you can see here. This is one of our clients who over time was able to work its way up to the upper right-hand quadrant by increasing its quality and lowering its costs in a very structured way. And in fact, this process, very creative one that really gives a lot of satisfaction to call center managers, as well as puts money back in the pockets of the budget, is really what we've seen to be a very, very good process for call center managers. And to do that, it's not all numbers. Obviously, we trace the negative gaps to 24 processes that have an impact on the call center. And this methodology that we've developed over many years really helps us to help the client identify where they can improve, where they can get the biggest bang for their dollar, the so-called low-hanging fruit first, and really improve themselves by taking specific actions on specific areas of their call center. And this, in turn, results in a continuous improvement type of culture that's very good for call centers. So they benchmark, obviously comparing to their competition. They then pinpoint the performance gaps that require their attention the most. They identify improvement initiatives that they can then utilize to improve their performance on those metrics. They can also look to certification if they wish to do that. And in the main, they are able to enhance their enterprise value and really be able to show senior management, look, this is where I was able to help us economically, and this is where I increased quality, so we're giving better service to our customers. And then this, as a part of a repetitious process, means that over time, since Rome wasn't built in a day and you can't attack everything at once, it does allow you to, in fact, get better and better over time. It's really a very virtuous circle, and one that has improved the careers of many call center managers, and obviously also added a lot of great value to call centers, to morale, and to the business focus of many, many call centers. Let me give you a quick case study just to give you an idea of how this sort of thing works. We had a situation where there was very high turnover in the call center. Not surprisingly, it was attached also to a quality metric, which was low agent satisfaction. So you had high turnover, which is, we consider a cost metric, because it's very expensive, as you know, to replace agents. Anybody who has not calculated that cost should do so. It can be very instructive, but we did a study a few years ago that showed on average it was over $6,000 in terms of the cost of turnover. And then a quality metric, low agent satisfaction. And we looked to the agent satisfaction survey that we had done for input, for data. And we're able to look at the sources of satisfaction and dissatisfaction, and also used open-ended comments in order to get further detail on what it was that was causing this high turnover. Well, this discovery process, which was really prompted by benchmarking and realizing that the high turnover was quite high compared to the industry average, resulted in some introduction of some great best practices. We found that the supervisors were, in this case, a major cause of discontent. And so they were singled out for additional training, and they were even renamed, rebranded. Instead of supervisors, they became known as agent advocates. Imagine the impact that that has when you come in and you're no longer a supervisor, but rather an agent advocate, somebody who is trying to make every agent the best that they can be, and in fact who is going to be judged in terms of their performance and compensation by how well their agents are performing. They all of a sudden become servant leaders who are really encouraged to help their people get as good as possible. So they were retrained for their new role and mindset. Revised compensation structure helped out, and the result was that agent satisfaction and morale went up incredibly over the course of the following 9 months. So this all began with a benchmark, and this sort of thing is repeated over and over again for all kinds of metrics that we follow. The impact on teams and agents in this case was great because it aligned people, processes, and analyses in the center, and the information about performance was also made more accurate and available to everybody in the organization and actionable. So there were a lot of very positive things that came out of this, and everyone became an advocate for everybody else's success, and they were all happy and dancing in the aisle, as you can see here. So really, these things can have a major impact, and it's great for us to see because we help to facilitate these things all the time. And at the end of the day, obviously, we were able to calculate a financial benefit for the management, help them in terms of lower turnover and greater productivity on the part of their agents. This was all calculatable and was put in management reports and presentations for the end of the year. And all of a sudden, a situation that had been quite dismal in the call center was a cause of a lot of great comments, and in fact, reflected very well on the call center management. So that's the sort of thing that we see coming out of benchmarking and taking the proper actions all the time. It really does result in a virtuous best practices circle because you are continually trying to find what's the next piece of lowest hanging fruit that you can pick and actually utilize to make your center better. So the thing is, and here is, while the value of benchmarking has been well proven over time, and we just have case after case of these management situations, the issue was that it still takes a lot of effort. There's still a lot of digging through reports and a lot of things that have to be culled through, calculated, etc., in order to put together a proper submission. And in our case anyway, if you come through with something that doesn't fit the formula, we'll be back to you and ask you for more. So we were looking for ways to automate the process and to make it better. With that, I'd like to hand things over to Chris Rouse at Symmetrics, and he will talk a little bit more about the analytics side of all of this. So Chris?
Well, thanks, Bruce, and good morning or good afternoon, everybody, as the case may be. So Bruce has taken us a bit through, the value of benchmarking in making some really impressive gains in productivity while slashing costs. But as you might suspect, the challenge of benchmarking is really the challenge of contact center management generally, that You can really only manage what you can measure accurately and consistently, not only across time, like enough time for that virtuous cycle of continuous improvement that Bruce just spoke about to really get going, but also across the various contact center systems that you rely upon to give you the efficiency and effectiveness measures that you need for benchmarking. So as we'll see, those measures are really only as good as the data that underlies them. That data in turn is only as good as the reports that aggregate and summarize them, and those reports in turn are only as good as the reporting architecture that you use to get at them. Now, in the world of information management generally, there is a law that governs all, and that is garbage in, garbage out. In plain terms, if the data you use is wrong, then the conclusions that you draw from that data and the resulting actions that you might take can be just as wrong, even disastrously wrong. But getting accurate information from your contact center system is a very complicated business and getting more complicated as time goes on. Now look, we're not saying it's easy. It's getting more complicated as time goes on. In fact, the modern contact center is no longer that single monolith of voice technology it was in the 90s and even, as late as the early 2000s. It's an ever-evolving multi-vendor assembly of different systems and applications that track and measure the many dimensions of the customer experience, as we call it now, that must be benchmarked. And while some of those individual systems are going to provide you with some basic reports from how their individual silo of data are performing, marrying the data from, let's say, your automatic call distribution system or your workforce management system, marrying that data together from those independent silos is not straightforward. And as time goes on, the ecology of the contact center is just going to get more complex. Think of the challenge of social media, for instance. So is it any wonder, then, that a recent study by Ventana Research suggests that less than a third of contact centers felt as though they were getting the key performance metrics that they needed? This is not a management failure or a knowledge failure. Most managers know exactly the kind of key metrics they need for performance improvement tasks like, let's say, benchmarking. They just can't get at the data because the complexity of the contact center environment confounds their efforts to secure even the basic information they need, let alone allowing them to uncover new opportunities. But inaction is not an option. So contact center managers and the analysts on their team get trapped using the one tool that's completely wrong for a performance improvement initiative like benchmarking. It's a spreadsheet. Now, the spreadsheet, it's great, it's so handy, it's omnipresent, but it's completely wrong for the job of bringing all your benchmarking data together. It's easy to see why you might try. Spreadsheets are very handy for analyzing limited sets of data. And because the spreadsheet is the one tool that's on virtually every manager's and analyst's desktop computer, it's seen as a low-cost or no-cost way to create a report quickly. But the problem is that while the spreadsheet is a great tool for analyzing limited sets of data, it's precisely the wrong technology to get the kind of regular data consolidation from disparate sources that contact center benchmarking requires. A few minutes of cutting and pasting that data from a couple of canned ACD reports is soon going to turn into an hour, then two, then most of a day for every reporting period that you need to look at. And then you need to rinse and repeat all over again for every reporting period you're looking at. So I say it's a costly quagmire because ultimately every hour a skilled analyst or manager loses in that kind of manual cut and paste labor is a sunk cost in wages and benefits. That's the spreadsheet's implicit cost, as it were. And each of those hours could have been spent on continual improvement opportunities uncovered by, let's say, a good benchmarking program. That's a spreadsheet's opportunity cost. Both can become very crippling over time. But these implicit costs may actually pale in comparison to an even more menacing feature of spreadsheet reports. The fact that they may be feeding you the wrong information. Because its data is assembled by hand, a spreadsheet report's data consistency and integrity can suffer over time. Erroneous information cannot be traced or audited. the problem just gets worse over time when analysts attempt to save time by linking spreadsheets to other spreadsheets so that an error in one will proliferate to all other reports down the line. This tragic flaw, as it were, of spreadsheet reporting can ultimately defeat the purpose of contact center benchmarking, which is, after all, fundamentally about getting accurate data and comparing those against accurate industry benchmarks. So remember the rule, garbage in, garbage out, remember? Now, luckily, there's an alternative, time-tested, widely used reporting and analysis architecture designed from the ground up to solve the problem of consolidating and reporting accurate data from complex environments like contact centers. It's called a business intelligence architecture, and it is the underlying engine that drives the iBenchmark solution that we're talking to you about today. The iBenchmark business intelligence system is made up of 4 layers. The first is the operational layer. These include the databases contained within your contact center's transactional system. So your IVR, your ACD, your workforce management, customer relationship management, other systems and applications that underlie all of the contact center's operations. In a BI architecture, these guys are simply just data sources. The second is the optimization and storage layer. This layer includes data access and staging services that extract, transform, and load data from the call center's operational systems down here and prepare it for storage. This layer also includes what's commonly called a data warehouse or sometimes a data mart. This is a separate, permanent database structured specifically for the task of reporting and analysis. It's the heart of all BI. Whereas the operational systems down here store relatively simple sets of data, like, let's say, timestamps or DNS and so forth. The data warehouse actually contains more complex calculated dimensions and metrics used for things like benchmarking. The data warehouse can also store months, even years of data for long-term historical trend analysis, while the operational systems down here generally only store data for a few months. Thirdly, there's the BI management layer, which handles security, storage, scheduling, distribution of reports to the web and other channels. It's the plumbing, as it were, through which all BI content, including benchmarking reports, flows. Finally, there's a presentation layer. Here is where end users, your contact center management team, will access and interact with the benchmarking reports and scorecards that BenchmarkPortal has prepared for you. Now look, it's not entirely necessary for you to memorize this architectural diagram of the technology underlying iBenchmark. All you need to remember is that BenchmarkPortal is using the very latest generation of an enterprise standard reporting and analysis technology that is safe, secure, and most importantly, much, much more effective than manually assembling benchmarking data using your own spreadsheets. Now, the value of iBenchmark's BI architecture really shines in mixed or complex contact center environments with, let's say, multiple ACDs or mixed versions of ACDs. There's an apples and oranges problem that crops up again and again, even for such seemingly, let's say, standard metrics like service level. Everybody's familiar with it. It's the X number of calls answered within Y seconds. It's commonly called the 80-20 rule. But in fact, the way ACDs, the actual systems themselves, calculate service level can vary very widely. We know of at least 6 different ways of calculating it, mostly variations on how to account for and weigh abandoned calls, as you can see here. Now, each of these would produce a different result that can vary by a range of up to 5 to 6%, easily the difference between achieving a benchmarking target or falling short of it. Now, iBenchmark's BI architecture excels at resolving these apples and oranges conflicts. It's not left up to you to sort out in a spreadsheet. iBenchmark takes as a starting point the calculation that is appropriate for the benchmarking exercise itself. That becomes a single version of the truth, period. Data from the non-conforming systems will be recalculated automatically to conform with the standardized metric, which can in turn be compared accurately to your industry benchmark. And when you consider that some metrics are calculated from still other metrics, you can really see how important that data standardization is. take an agent statistic like adjusted calls per hour. It's analogous to inbound calls per hour, which is used by iBenchmark. It's broadly defined as the volume of contacts an individual agent handles over their productive time. So it weeds out idle time and is only influenced by how the agent is managing his or her work during the workday. As you can see, this metric is actually derived from 3 supporting metrics: handle time, schedule adherence, and availability. Schedule adherence typically comes from scheduling or workforce management systems, while idle time and availability is further derived from talk time, post-call work, non-contact hours, and sign-on hours. Now, the point here is that in a mixed system environment, any of the apples and oranges mismatch in the data will ripple upwards through this kind of pyramid to distort any and all of these dependent measures. iBenchmark's BI architecture smooths out any such ripple effects because it will apply that single version of the truth to all the supporting metrics, recalculating as needed. So as you can see, iBenchmark takes full advantage of everything a business intelligence solution is good at: gathering, consolidating, and standardizing data in an automated fashion and presenting metrics from various sources in comprehensive reports, and keeping that data as fresh as required and archive it for as long as required. iBenchmark automates the collection of benchmarking metrics from all of your ACDs at the very least. This will save you many, many hours of manual cut and paste drudgery and completely eliminate the scope for human error. With iBenchmark, you can see how your own contact center's day-by-day progress is, you can look at your own progress day by day towards the benchmarking goals that you will set with your subject matter experts with BenchmarkPortal and compare those to the very latest industry benchmarks. And you'll get month by month and ultimately year by year tracking of both your metrics and your industries so that you can prove to the higher ups in your organization the value of your benchmarking and continual improvement initiatives that depend on it. And finally, because iBenchmark is a solution based completely in the cloud, it's hosted by BenchmarkPortal, you can enjoy many of the benefits of a business intelligence solution at a very low cost and without any additional burden of IT support within your own organization. So that's a brief look at iBenchmark's reporting technology, and I'll just pass it back to Bruce. Bruce?
Thank you very much, Chris. I really appreciate that, those insights and those understandings that you have with regard to how this all works. An important part of all this, obviously, is the database. And BenchmarkPortal has been collecting contact center data since 1995 when we started this activity on the campus of Purdue University. So we have the largest contact center database in the world, thousands of members in our community. We have divided things out into 48 industry sectors so that you can really expect to have an apples-to-apples comparison of you compared to those who take the same kind of calls for the same industry that you are in. And this was all awarded a U.S. patent that we're very proud of. And obviously, we're very, very careful to maintain this database and to make sure that the information in it is very high quality. Everything is scrubbed that goes in. And as Chris pointed out, with iBenchmark, the possibility for human error goes way down, and therefore the quality will naturally be very, very high. And so, in fact, this is what contributed to the iBenchmark idea, was the fact that we knew that benchmarking had so many positive points for call center manager. We had seen it transform the lives of so many people in contact centers, but the effort that went into doing the collection meant that it really was only done once a year by most call centers, and therefore had more of the aspect of being an annual report card rather than a really solid management tool. And as a result, we developed the iBenchmark automated benchmarking system. This is the first of the reports, and what it does is to allow you to see all of the metrics that you have, those that are key performance metrics, as well as those that are things like budget, etc. Actual, your 12-month average, okay, actual being the most recent month, the 12-month average that you have, as well as the industry average. And this has been set up for a demo industry. And you can go down and see inbound calls per agent per hour, cost per call in dollars, average talk time, occupancy, utilization, satisfaction metrics, average speed of answer, etc. And you can also see things like number of agents and shifts, turnover, etc. All of these metrics are available to you in what we call the all metrics report, so that you can make sure that in fact you're being compared with the right folks, and can get a sense of how you compare in many ways to your same industry. So that's the all metrics report. The second report is called the Contact Center Balanced Scorecard Summary. And this has the key performance metrics that we have traditionally looked at, including things like caller satisfaction, agent satisfaction, and we all know that happy agents make for happy callers, and so there's a high correlation, statistical correlation there. Also, first call resolution and average speed of answer, queue time, etc. And down here we have those famous cost-related metrics, such as inbound calls per agent per hour, cost per call in dollars, average talk time, etc. And what we've done here is to show those metrics over the past 12 months so that you can see how you're in fact evolving over time. If you're having major effort to improve your average talk time or to improve your average speed of answer, how in fact has that been going over time? How can you factor in things like seasonality or that big upgrade that you did in your systems? These are things that you'll be able to see, and they're all there for you. You don't have to spreadsheet it, as Chris was saying. And the next report actually allows you to take any one of these and take a look at the specific gap between you and your industry. So for example, here is a situation where average talk time, okay, started out considerably above the industry average, 2.5 compared to about 1.7. And you can see that the call center in this case made a concerted effort in order to bring that down. And they did it in this case not by telling agents you have to get off the phone faster, but by coaching agents on techniques to keep customers happy, to continue to have very good first call resolution, but at the same time to minimize the chit chat, to make sure that things were getting done, but getting done quickly. And they actually recorded calls and allowed all of the agents to listen to how call closure could be done better, etc. And the thing is, this particular situation, there were collateral benefits that we saw also in terms of things like average speed of answer, because by finishing these calls well, but a little bit more quickly, they were actually able to improve their average speed of answer, which in turn raised satisfaction. So that's the gap analysis report, and it allows you to drill down on one specific metric and really get the most out of any changes that you want to make there. The next report is called the Performance Matrix Report, and this is the four-quadrant report that I had indicated, talked to you about before, where we have the quality index on the left, the y-axis, and the cost index down below. And what you can see here is that there is a progression that's being made by the call center over time. And this allows you to, in fact, plot your progress on performance in a very visual, very statistical, very satisfying way. And so that's the Performance Matrix Report, and one that people will anxiously look for month after month. And then the fifth report that we have here is called the BenchmarkPortal Sandbox Report. Here the playful nature in this came out, and also the what if nature came out. And that is to say, okay, one of the things we've seen time out and again is that if we look for low-hanging fruit, we can find it. We can then improve it, and then we benchmark again and see how it's done. What we have not had is a tool that allows you to actually play with that and figure out where your star will go over time if, in fact, you work on specific metrics. And so here we have a report which includes the various metrics, the industry average, the client metric, the gap, the actual matrix impact. So this shows you, in terms of the matrix, what does the expert formula say that the impact will be? Then we have a column here which I invite you not to look at the specific numbers because this is programmable. But the idea is that it's estimated cost of the negative gap. So if you have a negative gap, how much is it costing you? So this is something that we can work on and figure out what is the true cost of that negative gap. And then what you have is, okay, well, what would my target metric be if I thought I could get better at it? And then you can see what the adjusted matrix impact would be and also the potential dollar impact. So let's give this a try for a second. So for example, let us presume that we went through the training that allowed us to improve talk time to at least industry average, okay? And we were also able to improve our after-call work time similarly to at least the industry average because we were doing the training and also perhaps improving our knowledge management systems to allow us to do that. Agent occupancy at 77% is on the low side. And in fact, we see occupancy rates of 80% frequently. So, and let's say that we have a plan in place after talking about it to improve things to that level. Utilization at 72.9%, also low. One of the things that we find is that you don't want to have occupancy too high because then you burn people out. But once they're in their seats, they like to actually do things and not be twiddling their thumbs. So we'd like to see utilization rates in the range of 80% and et cetera. Well, if we make these changes, as you can see, we have improved the position of our star by moving it to the right. And that's exactly what we want to see in the sandbox exercise. And if, for example, we then want to take a look at our effectiveness metrics and say our average speed of answer, very high compared to the industry average. But if we got it down to the industry average, because in part we have lower talk time, and we have also lower time in queue that we might be able to say would go down to 30 seconds. And our calls abandoned also would be able to go down. We hate those calls abandoned. We like to get ones in the range of 4 to 5%. Okay. Then again, we can see that there is movement in the star upward at that point. And you're not going to, again, have Rome built in a day. But what you can do, and this is an extremely good thing to do on a managerial level, is have a plan that focuses you on goals and allows you to then see the fruit of the goals in a very visual and very statistical way. So this is the way that you're able to utilize the BenchmarkPortal sandbox to play your way, if you will, toward better performance. These are the summaries, the presentations that you will be able to see on a monthly basis under iBenchmark and be able to utilize. And helping you to do that is going to be the human factor. That is to say, our experts who have years and years of experience in call center management and also call center improvement. And these experts can ensure the proper use of the tool. Users of iBenchmark have an hour every month on the telephone with a WebEx style presentation with the clients, with our experts, able to go through all of these things, able to share the problems of the past month, able to share the triumphs of the past month, able to really dig down in a way that is very useful. We do select the best qualified SMEs. We're very fortunate at BenchmarkPortal in that We have wonderful people who want to work with us and who do work with us. And the training that they get is both initial and ongoing and very collegial. So they are keeping each other up to date on the latest things going on in the industry. We have people who are accomplished writers and speakers and really innovators in the industry. And so through this, we have a community of expertise that is put at your benefit, really. So the continuous coaching is built right into the iBenchmark product, and we think it's an incredibly important part of it. We offer our people research and publishing opportunities, and really they bring that information and that knowledge to the monthly sessions that are focused on you and your needs and the things that you want to do. So you really have your own expert sort of on call, able to help you out through the iBenchmark product. It also helps you with tracking because your expert helps identify improvement initiatives. You follow the progress month by month, measure improvements in KPIs, calculate the value in financial terms. This is very important. Our people are experts, and wherever they need help, we give them help in terms of figuring out the financial terms of the improvements that are made. They can help you determine the ROI of the improvements, initiatives that you take, and we can even help determine the earnings per share impact for quoted companies. So, we're happy to meet the challenge of helping you do those things. And this gives you a lot of information that you can utilize in your management presentations. In fact, we've heard by people who know of this product that basically their quarterly presentations would be done by using the information from iBenchmark. So really, the magic of iBenchmark is that it automates the benchmarking process. This does all the things that Chris was talking about. It's an ideal performance tracking tool, and the expert advice is baked in. And with that, I'd like to turn things over to Crystal and see if there are some questions that we've had.
Hi, Bruce. We do have a couple questions. I have one from Said, one of our listeners. He says, I understand how iBenchmark can pull all ACD data, but what about augmenting metadata from software like Salesforce?
Chris,
would you like to answer that one?
Yeah, so when you're talking about metadata out of Salesforce, and which is for those of you who are not using it, it's a CRM, customer relationship management / Salesforce automation application. Currently, the benchmarks that we use inside of iBenchmark are not leveraging that metadata out of Salesforce. The data that we use is essentially ACD, IVR data, workforce management data. We have plans to integrate with solutions like let's say Salesforce down the road when it comes to options around first call resolution. But right now, the metrics that we use inside of iBenchmark, in a sense, don't need the metadata coming out of Salesforce.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Our next question is from Pam. She says, at one point in the conversation, it was day-by-day analysis was mentioned, and now it was just mentioned month by month. How often will this product update for ongoing analysis?
Okay, I'll take that one. That's a great question. And ultimately, the information, it comes to us on a daily basis. For purposes of benchmarking, we have seen that really monthly is sufficient because you really have to sort of set goals, do something, and then look at it again. And so for benchmarking purposes, we've been told by the market that really monthly is sufficient. In terms of the data, we could do something daily going forward. And we, as we launch this product, we're listening to the market. And Pam, if there's desire on your part to really utilize this product for just following your own metrics and doing something on a daily basis, we will definitely look into that. Chris, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, I mean, the reason I mention it is architecturally we are feeding summary statistics to the iBenchmark solution from your ACD, your IVR, your workforce management system on a daily basis. So technically that's happening every day. As Bruce mentions, however, significant benchmarking process is not measured day to day, it's measured over a longer actionable period. But certainly every time you log into the iBenchmark system, you will be seeing the very latest data. At the very least, at the very most, it's 24 hours old.
Okay, great question.
Right, our next question is from Vanessa. Her question is, how do you incorporate WF workforce data that is not automated?
It's currently what we do right now is take that data from the survey, the in-depth survey that you will work with your SME to fill out. So if you're not using, let's say, a workforce management system like Aspect or Verint or any of the others that we support, that we still get that information from you, but we'll get it from you through the survey that we work, your SME will work with you to do. We take that information and then use it to do the calculations that require that scheduling information.
So just to add to that, basically there's about 70% of the key performance metrics which are you can get through the automated systems. And then there still are some that come through the survey, which means manual entry. But the number that have to utilize manual entry are much more limited, and in most cases much easier to get as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that answer. Our next question comes from Pam again, and she asks, the reality check requires data to be submitted from areas outside of the call center, like customer surveys, agent sat surveys, and turnover. Will this data be pooled for the ongoing analysis, or is iBenchmark data based solely on what is available through the call center software?
Okay, I think that was partly just answered in the sense that, yes, there will still be some information that is entered manually or through the survey. As time goes on, we will see what we can automate. We will try to automate as much as we can. But for now, there are definitely certain metrics that will have to be entered manually. Those metrics, by the way, it should be mentioned, generally speaking, don't need to be updated as often as the ACD or system type metrics. In other words, if you think about things like turnover or budget numbers are generally done once a year and perhaps adjusted once a year. So it's fine if you sort of do an input during the course of the year. And since you'll be on the telephone or the webinar, WebEx, if you will, with your benchmark portal, your iBenchmark expert on a regular basis, they can sort of remind you when you need to freshen some of those metrics.
And I'll just jump in, Bruce, with a very quick point about the iBenchmark architecture, which is it's precisely the architecture that is required to, over time, automate as much of the remaining 30%, let's say, as is possible in a contact center environment. The great thing about a business intelligence and data warehousing architecture is if there's a database that stores the data, we can access it, normalize the data, and then use it for benchmarking.
Mm-hmm. Great point.
All right, our next question comes from Linda, and she asks, can I be sure I am compared with other centers like mine?
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a very common question in benchmarking in general, Linda. And yes, through the fact that we have 48 separate industry sectors, it means that it really is very much of an apples-to-apples comparison. If at some point for a specific study that you need to do internally, you want to have a more restricted peer group report done for yourself, then that's something that you can talk to your iBenchmark expert about, and we can do on the side, if you will. So yeah, you can have a high degree of confidence that you're being compared with the right people, taking the same kind of calls that you do in the same industry in which you operate. Thank you for the question.
All right, we have a few more questions and then we'll probably be wrapping up in the next 5 minutes. The next question I have comes from Sandy, and she says, can the iBenchmark expert come on site also?
Okay, yeah, I'll take that one. Absolutely. What happens in many cases is that people who benchmark under the old system or going forward under iBenchmark realize that they could utilize the expertise of the, the expert or the consultant in a way to help them actually plan their initiatives. In other words, how do they determine what the low-hanging fruit is and how they should go forward? And to help do that best, obviously, it's good to have a solid understanding of the center, and therefore, as Sandy asks, can we come on site? And the answer is yes. The iBenchmark expert can, under a separate contract, a separate agreement, come on site, help out with a discovery process, and help put together a really robust roadmap for improvement for the call center.
Okay. Our next question comes from Bob, and he says, I love the iBenchmark idea. Do you have suggestions of how I can argue for it given a budget cutbacks?
Chris, do you want to start with that, and then I'll try?
Well, one of the points that I made during my presentation is that there are real implicit costs, hard costs, to trying to gather the kind of information that you need broadly for performance management in the contact center generally, and specifically in the context of the exercise for benchmarking. The hours and days that an analyst or a manager is spending collecting that information is a hard, sunk, real cost. And more to the point, as I said also, but I'll mention again, there's an opportunity cost. If you have skilled, experienced contact center analysts, supervisors, and managers chasing down little bits of data, they are not doing other performance enhancement and improvement initiatives that the contact center badly needs. They're essentially doing the job of a business intelligence architecture which is designed to completely eliminate those costs or replace them with a much lower cost alternative. So there are, certainly we can talk to you offline about your particular situation, but there are some quick back in the napkin calculations that you can make, not only on the cost of gathering this information, but as Bruce has, very ably demonstrated, the benefit side of the a benchmarking initiative and improvement cycle that will ultimately make your contact center more productive at a lower cost. Those are terms that chief financial officers in particular understand.
Yeah, I think that this is a situation where the benefits, given the cost, and the costs are significantly less for most call centers than the cost of one full-time equivalent. And we just see time and time again that we are able to, Bob, we're really able to have people have an ROI on benchmarking itself, and we'll have an iBenchmarking that is very, very high. And in fact, we will I will guarantee you, Bob, a positive ROI on iBenchmark, because we know that the combination of good benchmarking plus expert input plus a management team that wants to actually implement the low-hanging fruit initiatives always saves money, and always is something that you can bring to your CFO and say, okay, this paid for itself. So I will guarantee that if that will help you to, in fact, move forward on this. So thanks for that question.
Okay, it looks like we have time for one last question, and that is from MJ. And he says, how difficult is it really to set this up on the IT side?
I'll jump in there. It's actually a process that the iBenchmark team does in cooperation with your IT staff, but it's a very, very low burden on them. Essentially, all we need to do is install a simple web client service that will run on a server on your network to access and collect summarized statistics and transmit those to the iBenchmark server in the cloud. It's something that we do ourselves with some network permissions from you. It's a completely controlled and secured process. It takes a very small amount of time. Usually we get everything set up within a few hours, and we're away to the races. One thing I'll mention, because people get a little bit nervous when they think about data going outside the organization, is that none of the data that iBenchmark uses is traceable to any customer or even any agent. These are summarized benchmarking performance statistics that are not tieable to any known security risks. So just like to mention that because nobody's asked it, but we sometimes get asked that question.
Okay. Great. Well, listen, thank you very much, Crystal, for helping out with those questions. And Chris, thank you very much for being with us today. And thank you very much to all of the those who are listening and those who sent in questions. We really, really appreciate it. So we hope to hear from you and would love to work with you on iBenchmark. We think it's a very, very special new product, one that can help you and make a major difference in your management toolkit. So with that, have a wonderful day and looking forward to the weekend. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.